Welcome everybody, good evening, thank you for joining me. We'll do a quick sound check and then we'll get underway. Alright, well we've got a fair bit to cover tonight. We're going to go through our new strategy, we're going to have a look at MT4 and the members area for MT4 for those of you who are doing the trial version, and we're going to have a look at obviously the new momentum system and how that's running with some preliminary testing on gold, the DAX, the Euro futures, crude oil. So we're doing some preliminary work on that now. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be sending out a trial version of that for the next week. So for those of you who are interested in doing some beta testing on the new system, I'll be sending out an email just to get some names, and we probably want about 5 or 6 people involved in that if we can. That would be super. And the other thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the systems and managing the strategies and why it's important to basically get rid of gold, to basically keep an eye on your system and track your strategy. And the reason why that's so critical is because you just really never know when things are going to turn around for your strategy. So as we say a lot of the time when we're dealing with systems, and I'm just going to go through the top 10 futures here just to illustrate a couple of points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change over here to, I'm just going to stop my projection just for 1 second. So I'm just going to move my spreadsheet over, and I'm just going to show you what's happened over the last month or so just on these results. So this will populate back into the screen, and we should see a spreadsheet with all the futures results on it. So yep, can everybody see that clearly? So I'll just get a yes and then I'll proceed, or a no. Yep, fantastic, great. Alright, well what's been interesting, and this is kind of what has been the most interesting thing for me, is that back in July we started tracking this on a week by week basis just to get an idea of how the system stacked up, probably the top 10, although it's expanded out to be almost the top 20, but some of these systems are the same system, just a slightly different setting. But you'll see here that what was interesting, and the systems generally were fairly consistent. You know, there weren't too many small winning weeks, but then we hit a bit of a rough patch here on the 30th of September where we had our first losing week. Then we backed that up with the second week in a row in October, so 2 losing weeks in a row, but since then we've bounced back nicely. Now what was interesting was that the Euro bond, which was one of the strategies that we're trading on, the 144 and the 55, so both of those systems went through a bit of a drawdown, and we turned them off. Now, what happened with those systems was that they went through the drawdown here during August, September, and the system went off because it hit our circuit breaker. Every system has a circuit breaker. Every system will eventually get turned off at one point or another if you're trading within a trading mandate or a risk per day, per week, per month. A drawdown circuit breaker. So at some point you're going to turn a system off. So really our goal as system traders is to get to a point where we've made enough money on the system that even if we have a drawdown, it's minimal based on our portfolio, or if it's only the one system we're trading, then obviously we're going to take we're going to have a drawdown of whatever the value is. Say for example it's $1,000, well we're down 1,000, but hopefully if you've been tracking it properly, you will have made good money on the system, and then you're just cutting the losses. Then when the system bounces back, you can then fire that system back up again and start making money. Now interestingly, the 144 SN67, which was the Eurobond 144, it had a nice little drawdown midway. It got turned off here on the 29th of September, and it was off for about 3 weeks. I did a little bit of analysis on that system, and what I found was that it's back on in a big way. So it's made some really good money, and from the 21st to the 28th, it's produced It's hit its targets for the last 2 weeks, so it's back on and back trading. And the same can be said for the Euro 55 tick. That is trading as well, and that's back on. So we're going to go and have a look at those two. We're going to have a look at those two charts, and I'll show you what I mean visually from the performance graph of how they've bounced and why it's important to be continually tracking these systems. And the other thing, we've had a couple of setting adjustments, obviously, on that. New settings for the 55 tick, new settings for the 144, new settings for the Russell. So the Russell, with its new settings, has produced, well, on one of the systems, both systems have produced over $1,000 with new settings. Now, when I say it's got new settings, what do I mean by that? All I've done is basically gone into the Russell, and I've said, right, well, how is the Russell trading? Like, looking at our system performance tracker, what results is the Russell giving me that are different to when we first set this system up? So what's changed with the days of the week or the longs versus the shorts? Obviously, this system isn't trading well, and can we still be trading it but have a modification or change the days of the week that we trade? You know, is there a clear advantage to dropping one of those days off, or the long short bias? So on a weekly basis, most of you who are trading and tracking your systems will go through this process of looking at, you know, your system and breaking your system down based on its level 2 and level 3 analysis, which is days of the week and longs versus shorts. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to show you what I've done on crude, just to highlight this point. So this is system number 3. Everybody's very familiar with system number 3. It's one that a lot of us are trading. You can see here that I've just manually put this into a spreadsheet. We can do this a number of ways. We can put it in manually weekly, or you can put it in using the system performance tracker spreadsheet, which is an automated process to a degree. Now, there's an advantage to putting it in manually, and there's an advantage to automatically updating the spreadsheet. What would be the advantage of manually typing in these figures? I mean, it does take a lot more time, obviously, but what's the advantage of going through this process manually, rather than just clicking a button and you've got everything at your fingertips? Is there an advantage to doing it the old school way of just typing away and putting all the values in and going through? Yeah, you know what's going on. You definitely get a feel for exactly what's happening, because I did this process last week and I felt like I really had a good handle on this system. Everybody's pretty much right there. We've got the comments like it gives you a really good feeling for it. It's Scott. Richard says you become very familiar with it. Stephen, you're rewarded with the endeavour and the effort. So, and Brett, you know what's going on, and that's exactly right. You actually know what's going on. So when we talk about, you know, managing our system, we say, right, well, there are basically three levels that we manage a system, don't we? So there's level 1, which is your pilot system. That's what we created. That's what we created when we first came about with this system. And I'm going to show you some pilot systems tonight that we've just run the new strategy on, that have come up and are profitable. So very keen to get my hands on those. We need to do some more work. But the pilot system is, remember, the pilot system is just the basic profitable settings. Then we get to go in and do this analysis where we say, right, well, level 1 analysis is level 2 analysis is all days, looking at all the days of the week. Then level 3 analysis is looking at longs and shorts, the profitability of those two. So if we look at system number 3, we can say, if we quickly glance across all of these, you've got your overall profit for each of the days. You've got the maximum profit that's made. You've got your maximum drawdown, your current drawdown. You can see there clearly Monday, Tuesday look really good on all days, don't they? They've got virtually no drawdown, and even Thursday, Friday look pretty good as well. Their profit is pretty much, they're all running around the same profit. Wednesday's definitely out. You wouldn't be trading that. And then we go to our next criteria, and our next criteria is, because remember, on system number 3 we've got a circuit breaker, or in the example I showed last week, I said, right, well, if we have a $1,280 drawdown, we're going to turn this system off. So it's 8 times our risk, because our risk on system number 3 is 16 points or $160. So we turn the system off. Now, what's been interesting here is that system number 3 on Friday, that's probably, now remember that what I said, look, the minimum I would turn a system on would be $30, $30 to $35. Anything below that, you're wasting your time. And ideally, we want to really have our benchmark at 50. So you can be really picky with the days you trade. And it really comes down to, like, not everybody is going to be trading this system exactly the same, are they? So we can have 15 people in this room tonight, and we could almost have a number of different combinations of the way we trade this system based on your initial risk, based on how much money you need to see the system make before you get back in and start trading it, based on whether you want to trade with an average trade net profit of $30, $35, $40, $50, whatever the amount is. You might decide, well, it's got to be 80. It really comes down to, there's a lot of components that make up the strategy. And this is why it's so great to have these variables, because it means that we're not all going in with the same strategy. So for example, for me, I've looked at this and I've thought, well, I've marked out my days that I'm potentially going to be on for. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Then I went back down and well, what's happening on the long side? $28 isn't enough. 86 on Tuesday. Thursday's $98, Friday 71, and then on the Monday shorts I had massive 127. Tuesday, so Monday night is just a great night on the short side. Tuesday night is $48, that's on for me, and the rest of the days of the week are off. So I've fairly selectively, now I did make mention of this last week, or Monday I should say, and I want to make mention of it again. If you get a Monday that is very, very good, and you've got a Monday here that's been good, but its average trade net profit is slightly down, you could potentially look at those 2 days and say, well, look, I'm going to take the trades on Monday because collectively they're running at $86. However, if you look at this and say, well, this is $28, it's really only got $270 in the bank on Monday for every trade it's taken over the last couple of months, it's really not worth trading this, because if you get some slippage, you're almost going to be losing money on that day. So you've got to be very objective, you've got to be very critical about your system and what you're picking, because at $28 I would probably pass on Monday, me personally. Some may say, well, collectively 86, I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in and trade that. So that's the decision we need to make. Now that's just an example of one way we can track the systems going forward. And you can see, I'm hoping you can see the value of whether you do it this way, whether you do it the way in which Damon does it, which I'm going to show you later in the session, which is using a spreadsheet and updating his trades every day. And then he populates that information across his entire spreadsheet. I'm going to show you that. That's quite impressive. Or you use the system performance tracker. But either way, you're going to see these examples in the video we've put together for part 2 of the system performance tracker. So you'll see that there are a number of ways you can do it. It doesn't really matter what way you do it. The key is it really matters that you do it, because by going through this process, you have a very, very good feeling of what's happening with your system. Like if someone comes to me now and says, all right, Shane, I heard you did a bit of an update last night in the room on crude, on SN03. Can you tell me what your conclusion was or your findings were for the system? Well, I can clearly give you an appraisal on the system and tell you what days of the week I would personally be trading. Does that mean that you're going to be trading the same? No, it doesn't. You've got to take ownership of the systems. You have to do the work yourself. You can't rely on people to put stuff up on the website or, create new settings all the time. You've got to, if you're trading a system, you have to take ownership of it and you have to do the work yourself. Otherwise, you're relying, you're not trading. You're basically just letting someone else do the work for you, and that's not managing a high performance system. That's not trading as in the way that we want our traders to basically run their systems in the Pro Trader program. So I definitely want people to be going through this process. How often should you do this? I would say you need to do this once a week, and the reason why you need to do it once a week is because things can change very quickly. Like I was having a conversation with Brett today, and I'm going to talk about this later tonight. Coffee had 2 losing trades yesterday, and I was looking at my charts today, and I looked at mine, and I didn't see 2 losing trades on mine. So when I went through the settings, I saw that just a slight change to the settings would have made a difference. Now, the settings Brett has obviously is making more money, but it's got a little bit not more risk, but you're taking more trades. So it again comes down to what your settings are, what finer adjustments you've made. But it's really, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But no one's going to necessarily be trading the same way, or you're using the same strategy, or having the same days of the week on or off based on their average trade net profit, or based on their arm multiple or their circuit breaker. So we've got a question from Andrew. When do you decide to turn a long short day? How many trades would you need before you make a call? Well, really, to me, it's you need on your system. You really want to have you need on your system between 100 to 300 trades. Okay, that's on your pilot system. Now you need, the more trades you've got, the better. If you've got 10 trades in your system, that's really not enough to kind of be drilling down to longs and shorts and turning days off, unless you clearly have 10 losing trades in it and that day's never made any money. You wouldn't be trading it, would you? I mean, if you've got, because statistically you've got to look at your win rate and you say, right, well, on my pilot system, which is my profitable strategy, I've got a win rate of say 40%. Well, then ideally you're going to want to see the same probability or win rate filtered through your days of the week, aren't you? In your longs and shorts. If you're not seeing that and you're not seeing any money being made, well then why would you trade the system? I would turn it off and then just monitor it. So there will be days where and this is the important thing, if you do decide not to trade a day of the week, you've got to make sure that you keep tracking it, because that can very quickly become profitable. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump in here and have a look at some of these systems, and I'm going to jump into system number 66 first, and let's have a look at this, because this is interesting. Okay, so let's get rid of that. So here's our, I've only gone back a couple of months here, but you can see that from May, this thing was tracking along. I mean, it wasn't flying along. Obviously, it's a jaggedy equity curve, but then it took a huge drawdown here. This is where it got turned off. But then because we kept analysing the days of the week, we basically went in and said, right, well, we've got some new performance, we've got some new settings here because we're monitoring the days of the week, and we're able to exclude a lot of the days that were not performing well and still maintain a good result on the system. So we took the system from a drawdown to start actually making some money. So I think it had a 180, then it went to $75, then 580, and then this week it's down 75. But it's starting to come back and trade and perform as we would hope it would on the 55 tick. Now the system number 67 is a little bit more obvious, because we had a very, very nice strategy running. Then we had this huge run down. So this thing was flying along, huge run down, some minor changes to the system, but this is why it's important to continue to track your strategy. If you forget to keep monitoring it, you're going to miss out on this run, because this run has netted out 530. That might have been that week 14 would have been your get back in week. So $530 bounce. most of us probably would have said, well, if it's recovered $530, I'm tempted to get back in on this. Then this is where we kind of really modified the settings and did some work on it a couple of weeks ago. 675, 675, 225. So this thing's flying now. This thing is absolutely rocking along. And this is why it's important to, you can get a bit of obviously a bit of a down run when you turn a system off, and there's this negative feeling about, well, I've turned the system off, it's burnt me $1,000 or whatever the value is. But it's really important not to become emotionally attached to these things. You've got to really be able to be very objective and say, right, well, I know at some point, even though I've got some good systems running, they're all going to have to be turned off at one point or another. So if you resign yourself to the fact that when you start trading a system, you're going to have to turn it off at one point or another, then it's just a case of which one do I turn back on? When do I get back in on a strategy? So system number 64 is definitely flying along nicely. 67 is really stepped up. Now, what I've done also is I've basically added in here the Russell, because the Russell's an interesting one too. Now, let me just pull up the Russell, on 64. This is the one I'm after. So the Russell went through a little bit of drawdown, as we saw, and I think some of us were trading it, turned it off because running poorly. And this is the pilot system. So this is trading all the days of the week. And you can see here I think that's pretty much not quite as bad, but the actual previous high performance system, and I'll pick it up here in a second. Let me just grab it. Previous high performance system had a little bit of a nosedive like that, and it was not a pretty sight. So let's have a look at it. There it is there. So that's a previous high performance system. You can see there it's going south in a big way. Now that started back here on the 30th of September. 30th September, still traded the following week, down 175. Previous to that was 710, so you would have been shearing at that equity high. But don't forget, it's delivered a lot of money prior to being turned off. It's actually made a lot of money prior to being turned off. Then we get this, like that 1 week it delivered 992. Then we get 235, or 207, 35, then a 710, but then we get this cluster here, and 3 weeks in a row of losers, you're turning the system off. So basically it's off. Then we reviewed it on the 21st of October. So we go back down here to see what's going on with this system. Can we turn it back on? And the answer is yes. Like, with a little bit of refinement and improvement. As far as now, what is the only thing we're doing here? Because remember, we're managing these systems. What is the only thing we're doing here with these strategies? When we turn them off, what are we doing when we turn them off? The only thing we're doing. Now, we're not changing the stops, we're not changing the targets, we're not doing any optimizing, we're not doing anything like that. What is the only thing we're doing to get these systems back on track? We're monitoring it, but what are we doing with the levels? We're actually drilling down into the days of the week and the longs and the shorts to find out where the advantage is. What have we missed in our tracking? So it's critical that by you doing that, you're actually staying on top of this. You're ahead of the game, because you can quickly see, like if we go back to that spreadsheet, you can quickly see, if I compare last week's results with this week's results, I can see which one of my average trade net profit is starting to lose money on a weekly basis. I don't have to wait, I don't have to wait for 3 weeks to go by. I can see it on a weekly basis, comparing 1 week to the other, where I'm losing money. And that's a great thing, because then you can go, right, well, all right, maybe, like obviously if you're doing it every week, you can quickly drop a day of the week that's underperforming out, and then you're not being subjected to, a couple of, 3 or 4 bad weeks of trading. So that's been just a nice little turnaround there, just with a couple of minor changes to the days of the week, and it's important for us to be tracking and doing that. So you can see the value of that process. Now if we go back to the, and I'll just bring this up now. Actually, I'll just go back to that spreadsheet and I'll just go through and just show you what's been tracking well, as I said before. So system number 3, and I'll just make sure that everybody can see that. Everybody clearly see the spreadsheet that I'm showing? Yep, all good, fantastic. So system number 3 didn't trade last week. It's back trying to crack that $4,000 mark. We've got new settings on that, obviously Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday for the shorts. We've got on system number 3, we have, system number 86, crude 9 to 9.10. That is exactly the same. For those of you who are wondering, what's this 86 like? I showed it last week. System number 3 is a 55 tick strategy on crude oil. What you can do is you can turn that to an 89 tick, which I mentioned on Monday, and that's basically on fire at the moment. That 89 tick is flying along. So if you are trading system number 3 and you've got the 55 tick, just change the tick settings. Copy the chart, change the tick settings. It's exactly the same strategy, and as I said, that's produced over $1,700 in the last 3 weeks. Flying along. We've got what else have we got here? We've got system number. We've got both the Russell strategies back in favour. We have system number 64 and 67 back on for the Euro Bund, 144 on the 55 tick. I'm going to show you something pretty exciting with the new momentum system here in a second. We have coffee. I'm going to go through a bit of a walkthrough on tonight because I think that there are a number of different ways we can. Now, Brett, you've revised system number 24, so I'm just going to show you a couple of different settings on coffee that I think are important to cover off tonight. Apart from that, though, everything else is ticking along okay. The best week last week was that system number 24. That had a fantastic week on coffee, 89 tick, and it produced just over $1,000, 1,166, and you can see there that we had those bigger settings on crude not perform as well last week, but nice job on coffee. So guys, still a profitable week for the 15 plus systems. But what's even more exciting is this new strategy, which we've just been having a bit more of a play with today, and I'll take you through that here shortly. So I'm just going to go back to the momentum strategy. Now this is something that Giovanni sent through on the 144. I'll just bring this up. So we've got a number of different. Now, for those of you who are trading or have seen this system before, period is for, and we'll just run the numbers here. It's from the 3rd of March to today. It's produced 11,000. The win rate is 74%. It's got a 90% win rate on the long side and a 61% win rate on the short side. It's got a average trade net profit of 158, winning trades 317, losing trades 301, average winning trade, average losing trade. It's got a profit factor of 3.4%, and you'll see here that it's got a very, very small drawdown. So you've got your max drawdown down here at 1553. So it's max drawdown to net profit is very, very good. Now, hey traders, thanks for joining us for the video presentation. If you really enjoyed the presentation, please feel free to click like on the video link below for the YouTube video. And if you'd like to become one of the V2 Elite System traders and improve your edge in the market, then we'd love you to email us at info@gmtfutures.com, and we're more than happy to take you through the systems and what's available to you as a potential new member. So thank you for your time. I look forward to obviously hearing from you, and if you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@gmtfutures.com as well, and look forward to catching you on the next video update. All the best. Cheers.